Andrew Huberman just brought Jordan Peterson onto his show for an astoundingly long, self-referential discussion designed to cross-pollinate their audiences for maximal commercial gain. Or, as Huberman explains in his intro,
today we discuss the human animal, what it means to be a human being at the level of psychology, at the level of neuroscience, and indeed at the level of expression of different personality types within us.
Which is to say, Huberman is hoping that he will be able to distill his mechanistic view of human biology into a convenient package that appeals to Peterson's anti-vax, climate change denialist, pull yourself up by your bootstraps pop psychology. Frankly, it won't be so hard. Honestly, I don't know how anyone can sit through a 4-hour-long discussion like this. Indeed, at around the 3-hour mark, both Peterson and Huberman agree that the entire mission of podcasting is sort of ridiculous and fundamentally dishonest.
Certainly learning about this new alternative media environment, if you can't sit down for 3 hours and say what you actually think, right? Regardless of what might do to your reputation, let's say, you're not going to be successful in the podcast world.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Podcasting is real. I'll just say, because perhaps it's of interest or maybe even actionable for people. I mean, I get a little frightened every podcast, certainly if I'm going to talk about, like, I'm forming this relationship to prayer.
So again, these are two of the most influential people in the social media space writ large saying that the secret to being social media influencers is not saying what you actually think, and instead speaking only to your one specific niche. Which, of course, leads them to talking about their own Lord and Savior, Joe Rogan.
Talking about a restructuring of the Democratic Party, who's going to lead, who's going to be their Joe Rogan, which is, by the way, a silly question. That's just the silliest question.
It's such a funny
He is, as we say in science, he's N of one. Don't even try. Like, the whole point is to create. Well, why would you?
Yeah, you also can't.
Yeah, right.
Like,
it's impossible.
Joe didn't emerge by accident. Joe is very, very, very smart. Very.
Which is funny because Peterson's new book, We Who Wrestle with God, is all about how a different theological pantheon has pertinent lessons for how you can live your own life.
In his new book, We Who Wrestle with God, he emphasizes the use of story, in this case biblical stories, to understand oneself and to best guide one's actions towards the most positive and generative outcomes.
And I want to emphasize this for a moment because I think this is really at the very core of what is going on with the Petersons and Hubermans of the world today. These men at the top of a certain social media hierarchy are trying to understand the root of power and influence in the world, insofar as they can extend and exert their own control over millions of people like gurus or demigods in their own right. Here is Huberman saying exactly that.
I'm starting to believe, and I'm now 49 years old, that we need a rule book, that the neural circuitry that's encased within our skulls is not sufficient to allow us to navigate through life to our best outcome.
For Huberman, it's all about rule books and follower counts and the desire to spread their message of how other people should live their lives, whether it's through Huberman's neurological protocols of hot and cold and light exposure, or Peterson's frankly banal make your bed every day and take responsibility for yourself guidance. As always, Huberman takes a mechanistic approach. He promotes the idea that we are slaves to our biology and that only physiological protocols can alter the way we experience the world. For instance, while describing poorly behaved babies, Huberman says that the problem is in the hypothalamus.
They are truly in their hypothalamus.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's, well, especially if you have a hypothalamus that's tilted towards rage, let's say, and defensive or predatory aggression, that's bad news.
Because it has to be in part of your brain. Peterson, for what it's worth, sees the core of human personality in the mythic, nay, heroic journey that all of us go through, just like in classical mythology.
It's a technical analysis of the structure of heroic expansion of personality.
However you look at it, at the end of the day, their roles as social media influencers is the same as it has ever been. Huberman and Peterson agree that the common denominator of everything is attention.
Ancient Egyptians worshipped attention. And they felt that the god of attention was the antidote to the pathological state. And they were right about that. I mean, they had a god of the pathological state. That was Seth. The god Seth, the name Seth, became Satan through the Coptic Christians. So they believed that the degenerate state had a spirit, and the antidote to the spirit of the degenerate state was the all-seeing, upward striving eye. And that's right. It's like they nailed that.
What they mean by this is that humans are defined by the things that they devote their attention to. So if you focus on improving yourself through protocols or Peterson's good habits, that will transform you as an individual into a better and more productive and well-adjusted person. But more important than that, Huberman and Peterson, the subtext here, no, maybe the text here, is that they want your attention because it increases their fame, their power, their influence, and casts them as gods or demigods in the pantheon of social media.
And I'm certain that by the end of today's discussion, you'll be thinking about your own neural circuits, that is, the connections in your brain that drive emotions, thoughts, and behavior, as well as your psychology, your different states of mind, and you are going to have a number of different tools and frameworks with which to apply all that knowledge toward the best possible outcome.
They want you to follow their rule book because if you do, they get more famous. And that is the root at what is going on with this conversation and honestly, maybe most of the conversations that are successful on social media. We are creating gods and they want you to be their followers. And so there it is. Everything you need to know about this conversation in just like a few short minutes so you don't have to sit through a 4-hour podcast. From Pokebear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was my back channel.